Well, Elroy Paulus is the Economic Justice Manager at the Alternative Information and Development Centre. Elroy, good afternoon to you. It's tempting to focus on this 1% drop in unemployment. We could then say that we're making progress. Should we do that? Or should we really be focusing on the major problems that these numbers actually show us?
Thank you, Stephen. Good afternoon to you and your viewers and the team. There's a saying that goes, one swallow doesn't a summer make. And that's the view that came into my head the minute I saw these statistics. So yes, there's been a slight improvement with unemployment declining by 1%. But the reality is there's more than 11.2 million unemployed, when including the 3.5 million who gave up looking for work. And that is more than 40% of 23 million people in the labour force survey. The reality is we continue to face an unemployment crisis, and this mass unemployment drives income inequalities and the erosion of the social fabric manifested in alcohol and drug abuse, growing violence and crime. And we've seen lots of reports in that regard.
I'm going to come back to all of that, because you're absolutely correct to point to the evidence of that. Look at the rising crime numbers that we see at the moment. The one sort of philosophical point, though, is that I suppose the war on unemployment, or let me put it another way, creating jobs, probably is a story about 1% here, 1% there, 3% there, is what makes the difference over time. We're not going to have 10% economic growth, and neither is China for the foreseeable future.
That's true. And our growth projections have been forecast to be even lower, given what we know. And we have to locate this unemployment crisis in the historical development of post-apartheid South Africa, which is rooted in the premature industrialization of the economy and the dismantling of the manufacturing as well as the clothing and textile industries. The problems made worse, unfortunately, because of government's harsh austerity program, including massive real cuts to the public sector wage bill, and not just about workers' wages. It's about reducing the headcount, Stephen. Okay. So when you couple that with budget cuts, along with massive interest rates, it's likely to put the handbrake on the South African economy, which we are witnessing right now. And so when you throw load shedding into the mix, it's likely to see further job losses in the future.
We've seen unemployment really rising. If you look at it as the number of people without a job in South Africa, it's been rising in South Africa from the 1970s, apart from a very small sort of blip in the early 2000s. Now, the fact that it's been rising for so long, longer than most South Africans have been alive, probably tells us many things, that it's structural, that it's about inequality, that it is about our past and the impact it has now. So then, where do we make the changes? And I mean, this gets to the same conversation around what's called structural reform. And once we start the conversation, different people in South Africa want different things from structural reform.
Yes, of course. It's a global phenomenon. Of course, it hit South Africa too. The financial crisis of 2008, and now more recently the COVID pandemic. And what we need to look at from AIDC perspective is we've listed very shortly 3 alternatives. And if I may, I think the priority, as stated before, is the urgent introduction of a decent basic income grant of at least 1,500 rand a month. And there are many civil society organizations that support that. And that grant, from an economics perspective, will not only improve people's standard of living and lift people from starvation, it will stimulate the local economy and improve productivity, which is where jobs are created. So we will have little pump prime effects at the local level, and that's necessary. Stephen, the second issue is, or alternative, what we can do is that we can invest in job creation, creating alternatives. For example, we could develop a low-carbon reindustrialization program, and that can cause millions of jobs aimed at addressing climate change. And that enables the state to invest in public energy, public transport, housing, transforming agriculture, etc. And it includes the production of socially owned renewable energy and the manufacturing of solar, PV, and wind infrastructure. So there are alternatives, but time is ticking.
Well, I mean, time's been ticking for a long time. Government's been promising economic reform. I remember the President's Social Compact, which he spoke about in the State of the Nation address at the beginning of the year. He actually spoke about it in 2017, a full ANC term away. Why do you think nothing changes? Is it just people in government who don't get it? Are they wedded to the wrong policies? Is there something else?
Well, as many of the statements of the AIDC before, government is investing actually to the benefit of an elite. If you look at your income distribution profile, the people we want to attract, bizarrely, are a very small number of people who are high income earners, the rich, and we are doing something that is bizarre. We, through a self-imposed structural adjustment program, we are saying, come investors, see how low we can go, see how low we can scrape the bottom of the barrel. And quite frankly, you need to have the drivers to be not the state. Government should become the employer of last resort. So when we do that, we need to employ people who are willing and able to work, pay them a living wage. There's lots of work to be done, and people learn by doing. We need many barefoot plumbers who can be trained to detect and fix water leaks. We need to remove alien vegetation from our rivers. EPWPs can be the basis to do this, but it needs to be transformed and improved the working conditions, as many of our comrades in the Back to Work campaign have called for, and elsewhere. It means that permanent employment and a living wage is necessary. It also means expanding the public sector, and we need many more teachers, healthcare, municipal workers, for example. Just one quick win is there's approximately 70,000 community health workers who can be employed directly by the state at a living wage. And they've been fighting this battle for a long time. What that would do is that it will not only reduce unemployment levels and numbers, it will also improve the health sector. So there's lots of ideas and lots of things that need to happen. But in order to do that, Stephen, we need to implement a progressive net wealth tax between 3 and 7%. We need to make difficult decisions and increase personal income taxes on the rich. We need to stop profit shifting and wage evasion. We need to use the surpluses of the government employees' pension fund instead of investing from foreign sources, and invest in a reindustrialization program. And there are even more pools of money that can be harnessed and utilized for that purpose.
Elroy Paulus, thank you. Economic Justice Manager at the Alternative Information and Development Centre. The view from him. I'm afraid to say the conversations around unemployment are very likely to continue for a very long time.